Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chelsea if this is your first time here. Welcome back for another Mom Talk Monday. Today I know I look a little bit different than I normally do, and it's just been a really rough week. Generally I like to put myself together so that you all, when you watch me, don't have to see this and you see maybe a little bit better version of me, but this is me. This is mom life, and if it's your first time here, I do have two boys. I have a 2-year-old named Sebastian and a almost 5-month-old, he's about 4.5 months right now, named Matteo. And this week has been rough. So I want to talk about a few things, and generally I want to talk about the 4-month sleep regression. So I guess to give a little backstory, Matteo was born at 38 weeks. I do have his birth story recorded, so I will go ahead and link it in the card and down below. And I will say that for both of my kids, we were trying or not preventing pregnancy. So we, were kind of expecting that we would get pregnant. And so based on my ovulation, Mateo's due date should have been within the first week of June. But because of the date of my last menstrual cycle, he was supposed to be due the 31st of May. So that being said, even though he was born at 38 weeks, he really was about the size of like a 37 and a half week old. So sorry if you can hear Sebastian, the kids are napping. Matteo is asleep, and Sebastian is still kind of settling for his nap. So if you hear him in the background, that's what's going on. Anyway, so Matteo was born really roughly about 37 and a half weeks. And generally when you base things off of age and the growth spurts that they should be hitting and the marks, the I guess accomplishments that they should be hitting, I can't really think of the word, you base it off of their age. And some people say to base it off of when they were actually born. Their due date, not when they were born. Because technically when babies come out, they go through what's called a 4th trimester. And they're kind of just adjusting to being out in the world. But I think that when kids are early, generally when babies come early, it's a little bit of a rougher transition because they really should have still been in the womb for a couple of weeks, and decided to come out early. So we had a fairly fussy period with Matteo to start out, but as second-time parents, it was easier for us to adjust to him getting into like a sleep routine. He was still kind of up every 2-3 hours in the middle of the night. And at about 3 months, we transitioned him into his room. And I will say with Sebastian, he stayed in our room for way too long, and it got to the point that it was really difficult for us to get him into a healthy sleep routine. We do sleep train, and I think we do kind of like a modified Ferber method. So Matteo started rolling from his back to his belly at 3 months old. And so the bassinet then got to be too small. And we transitioned him into his crib, and he has been sleeping in there like a champ until the last week. And this mama is exhausted. So he was sleeping through the night, and that was fairly consistent for a couple of weeks. And then he was starting to wake up once throughout the night, probably after about 9 or 10 hours. And I was grateful to have only been up once, or to be up, to be able to sleep through the night those nights. Of course, as a mother, you don't really sleep through the night, even when your kids do, because you're checking on them or getting up to go to the bathroom or drinking water. I do nurse my kids, so it's just, there's a lot of things that still happen for me in the middle of the night, and I wasn't necessarily sleeping through the night, but Matteo was, and he will be 5 months on the 17th, and I think because of his adjusted age, the 4-month sleep regression is just hitting, and it has been a really rough transition for us. He is up a lot. He is difficult to get to sleep. 2 nights ago, we were up probably 7 times with him, and it's a transition that the kids experience, that babies go through, and it almost feels like we're regressing. I know it's called the 4-month regression, but a lot of doctors will say they're progressing in their sleep patterns. So they're, transitioning out of being infants into more of like a baby. And this is when healthy sleep habits can, be created. And we didn't sleep train Sebastian until he was 7 months old. I will say he didn't take a pacifier, so self-soothing was generally non-existent. It was really me. So he would nurse at the breast to kind of self-soothe. With Matteo, he does take a pacifier, and I'm trying to do research to figure out, I guess if you're a fellow mama and you have any sort of advice on this, please comment below. But I'm trying to figure out how to sleep train him and help him become an independent sleeper, and to I guess be able to self-soothe without having to go into his room and put his binky in. He was doing so good at putting his hands up to his mouth. He does sleep on his stomach because he does roll. He doesn't even start out on his back. He literally just flips. And I think part of what he's experiencing is it's a 4-month sleep regression, but he's also waking up in the middle of the night and wanting to roll over onto his back. And he's not capable of doing that in his crib. Now, if we do tummy time or I lay him down on his playmat, he will flip almost immediately, and he will sit there and do tummy time, and then he will flip back over onto his back. He hasn't mastered it to the point that it happens every time, but a lot of the time that's what happens. And for whatever reason in his crib, he just doesn't put his hands underneath him to do that. So his hands have ended up at his side, and as he cries and frustratedly grunts and screams for me to come and get him or to help him, I guess, get back to sleep, he's like scooting backwards slowly and slowly. Like he ends up on the complete opposite side of the crib. So it's just been a real struggle. I'm exhausted, and I think that it's time to start sleep training. Now, I said I wasn't going to do this until 6 months, and I'll tell you why. We don't introduce solids until 6 months. I personally believe that children's digestive tracts are just too sensitive and still developing at 4 months. And I know that there are some people that start at 4 months or 3 months and they do the cereal or the oatmeal, and that's fine. My mom did that with me. But my husband and I are just comfortable waiting until 6 months and, waiting for the proper head control, for them to stop with the tongue thrusting, like spitting stuff out, and to be able to, sit up more or less on his own. So I still will nurse my kids at night, and sometimes when the baby wakes up in the middle of the night, he's hungry and needs to be nursed, but other times he really just needs help getting back to sleep. And I think that's the struggle that I experience as a mother when we do sleep training, is differentiating if he's just struggling to go to sleep, or to go back to sleep, or if he's actually hungry and needs me to nurse him. And so my husband had mentioned yesterday that it may be time for us to just go ahead and start sleep training, and I'm thinking that I'm probably for it. I will still nurse my child at least once, but I'm trying to do research on how to not put the pacifier back in his mouth to help him self-soothe. And earlier today he did take a nap, and he woke up before an hour and a half. I do have the Moms on Call app. I know that they have a book. They were neonatal nurses, and they have a book on how to get your child into a schedule, how to help them with sleep training and self-soothing at a very young age. I don't necessarily agree with everything that's in their book. I know that some moms swear by it. I'm not that person, but I do like to follow their app for a schedule somewhat of how long he should be awake for, when he needs to go down for a nap, and all that kind of stuff. And it's really cool because Sebastian is also on that app, so I have both boys side by side and what their schedules should look like. They don't always look like that. My boys are not up at 7 like that schedule says, and you can't really manipulate it, but it tells you more or less, how long they should be awake, when they should eat, how long they should sleep. And that app says that 2 out of the 3 naps need to be an hour and a half. So you just kind of let them self-soothe. And he did sleep only for an hour this morning, but he was able to help himself get back down. So just trying to work through the sleep regression, and, really hoping that it's over soon. There are some other things that I think he could be experiencing. I know that his teeth are really bothering him. So Everything's in the mouth. He wants to chew on everything that he can get his hands on. If it's not a hard surface, like earlier he had a stuffed animal and he wanted to chew on it, but it wasn't anything that was soothing for him. So he got angry. I also know that he is in a leap at this point, and I think this leap is like the longest, where it's supposed to be a shorter period of time, but it could be over like a month and a half span of time that it could happen. And I think that he's finally in that as well. And that's, I think, another 9 or 10 days. So there's a lot going on. And I think the 4-month sleep regression is harder than having a newborn. And I think that as a newborn, you kind of expect it. And then all of a sudden, your baby starts sleeping, and they sleep through the night and they do really well. And then it's almost like they're a newborn all over again, and we're up all night. And it's different now because they're aware of their surroundings. And, you know, he sits up because he sleeps on his stomach. He'll, you know, sit up like he's doing tummy time, and he'll look around, and I'll see him on the monitor, and you can see like the glare of his eyes, and just see that he's awake. And, you know, just helping them transition back into sleep, just like we wake up multiple times during the night, and when we roll over, whatever, and we end up falling back to sleep. So that's something that we're really struggling with this week. And obviously, if you clicked into this video, it's something that you may be experiencing as well. So I'd love in the comment section if you would like to give me your tips and tricks, or if you're experiencing the same thing, we can talk. But that's basically what's happening this week in our household. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I upload. Make sure to thumbs up this video and leave a comment letting me know what other videos you'd like to see in the future. And if you're experiencing the 4-month sleep regression, or if you're getting ready to, or if you've already passed it, any of the tips and tricks of getting through it and not being exhausted. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week on Mom Talk Monday.